Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something we don't often discuss, but we all experience the need to protect parts of ourselves by not letting people know too much about us. This isn't about being secretive or detached. It's about valuing our own worth and understanding that who we choose to share ourselves with matters. Boundaries are often misunderstood. We tend to see them as something we put up to keep people away, to distance ourselves, or to protect our pride. But in reality, boundaries aren't walls that separate us from others. They're the spaces we create to maintain our own well-being, clarity, and sense of self. Think of boundaries as an invitation to others, one that shows them exactly how we want to be treated and respected. And it's not about pushing others away. It's about being mindful of how close we let them get and what we allow them to access. Boundaries are powerful because they remind us that we are worth protecting. They give us a clear sense of where our needs and values start and where someone else's end. They help us clarify our priorities and focus on what matters to us. Without them, we become like a house with no walls open, vulnerable, and unable to maintain our own space. But with boundaries, we can decide who comes in, what energy we want around us, and who might be better left outside the gate. Creating boundaries also helps us conserve our emotional energy. When we lack boundaries, we're more likely to say yes to things we don't want to do, to give when we're already feeling empty, and to constantly cater to others' needs instead of our own. We feel drained, overwhelmed, and ultimately resentful. A boundary is our way of saying, this is what I can give without losing myself. Boundaries free us from the trap of endless obligation and let us participate in relationships in a way that feels balanced and sustainable. Imagine a beautiful garden. The garden has an entryway, but it also has a fence designed to keep the garden safe. It's not meant to keep people out forever, but rather to help control the flow of people and protect the beauty inside. Now, picture what happens when we remove that fence. People can trample on the flowers, wander wherever they want, and leave their footprints all over the place. Before long, the garden is unrecognizable. It becomes a shadow of what it once was. Without boundaries, we're at risk of becoming like that garden, allowing others to come and go as they please, leaving us depleted and disconnected from our own sense of beauty and purpose. Boundaries give us the freedom to say no without feeling guilt or shame. They allow us to stand up for our values and protect our personal space, whether that's our physical space, our mental clarity, or our emotional stability. And by setting these limits, we teach others how to treat us, what's acceptable and what isn't. We remind people gently but firmly that our time, our energy, and our emotions are valuable. In other words, we don't just ask for respect, we set the terms for it. Ironically, boundaries also strengthen our relationships. When we establish limits, we become clearer about who we are and what we need, which helps others understand us more deeply. Boundaries allow us to be present and authentic without the need to give too much of ourselves too quickly. People around us come to see us as people who know our worth and respect ourselves, which sets a powerful example for how they can relate to us. So in a way, boundaries are a gift to ourselves and to those who care about us. Another aspect of boundaries is that they keep us focused on our own journey. In a world where so many voices are telling us how we should be or what we should want, boundaries help us listen to our own inner voice. They allow us to tune out the noise and distractions and prioritize the things that truly matter to us. They give us the strength to say, I'm doing what feels right for me. And that's enough without these lines. It's easy to get swept away by everyone else's opinions, demands, or expectations. Boundaries bring us back to our own center, where we can stand grounded in our values and vision. Boundaries are not just guidelines, they are a declaration of self-respect. They say, I am worth the space I take up, and I am entitled to protect that space. When we establish boundaries, we aren't just guarding ourselves against potential harm, we're actively creating an environment that allows us to thrive. In a world that often demands transparency and instant connection, there's something incredibly powerful about the beauty of mystery. We live in a time when everyone seems to know everything about everyone else. Social media has turned our lives into open books with every thought, action, and moment shared for the world to see. But in this age of oversharing, we sometimes forget how important it is to hold back some pieces of ourselves. The truth is, there's something sacred in keeping certain aspects of who we are veiled in mystery. Mystery isn't about being secretive or dishonest, it's about preserving parts of our identity that are meant to be discovered over time by the right people in the right moments. It's about holding space for the depth that can only be found when we're not constantly revealing ourselves to the world. Think of a well-crafted novel that leaves you turning the pages with curiosity, or a beautifully written song that reveals its meaning only after you've listened to it several times. It's the unknown, the unsaid that draws us in, that keeps us intrigued and eager to learn more. We've all encountered people who have an aura of mystery around them. It's not that they're hiding anything, but rather they know how to keep certain things to themselves. Their quiet confidence and depth seem to hold something precious that they aren't rushing to give away. There's a magnetism in this, a pull that makes you want to know more. We're drawn to those who don't feel the need to share everything about themselves immediately, those who keep a part of their soul tucked away, waiting to reveal it when the time is right. Mystery allows us to be more than just the sum of our experiences. It allows us to be dynamic, fluid, and ever evolving. We don't have to be defined by a single moment or a specific narrative. By holding some parts of ourselves back, we preserve the complexity of who we are. We become multifaceted people with different layers that others have to uncover at their own pace. This adds depth to our relationships and makes us more intriguing, not in a way that seeks attention, but in a way that invites connection. When we leave something to be discovered, it creates space for curiosity, for questions, for a deeper understanding of each other. The beauty of mystery also lies in its ability to protect us. In a world that often demands vulnerability without consideration, mystery allows us to maintain control over what we choose to share and when we choose to share it. And when we choose to share it, it's not about building walls or keeping others out. It's about understanding that not everything needs to be exposed to the light. Some things, our most cherished dreams, our deepest fears, our private thoughts, are for us to hold for a while, to nurture in private before letting them see the world. By doing so, we protect our emotional well-being, ensuring that when we do decide to open up, it's with people who have earned the right to know our stories. In relationships, mystery plays a crucial role in sustaining attraction and emotional connection. When we reveal everything about ourselves too quickly, we risk losing the element of surprise, of discovery. Relationships thrive on the unknown, on the anticipation of learning more about each other. That's what keeps the spark alive, what keeps us coming back to one another. If we give it all away up front, there's nowhere else for the relationship to go. But when we hold a piece of ourselves back, we invite the other person to stay engaged, to keep exploring, to keep uncovering more. Mystery also gives us the opportunity to be fully present with others rather than feeling the pressure to explain every thought or detail of our life. We don't need to justify or narrate our existence to everyone we meet. Sometimes it's enough to just be. When we stop over-explaining ourselves, we free ourselves from the burden of having to validate every action or decision. We give ourselves permission to live authentically without feeling the need to constantly fill the silence or satisfy the curiosity of others. Mystery allows us to be in the moment without the need for constant commentary. In the same way, mystery also enables us to grow into who we are meant to be. When we don't feel the pressure to expose every part of ourselves, we create space for personal evolution. We have room to make mistakes, to experiment, and to evolve into the person we are becoming. We don't have to have everything figured out or share every twist and turn along the way. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to not explain yourself at every step. Sometimes the beauty lies in the process, in the unfolding, and in the quiet growth that happens when no one is looking. Moreover, embracing mystery gives us the freedom to change our narrative. We aren't confined to a single identity or past experience. Life is fluid, and we are constantly evolving. By maintaining some mystery, we hold the power to rewrite our story, to embrace new chapters without being tied down to what people think they know about us. We are more than the labels others place on us, and mystery helps us protect the space in which we can redefine ourselves over and over again. The beauty of mystery also lies in the way it shapes how we view others. When we allow people to remain a mystery to us, when we don't rush to learn everything about them, we open ourselves up to truly experiencing them for who they are, not for what we expect them to be. We are able to appreciate the fullness of their complexity, to see them as multidimensional beings with their own stories, quirks, and surprises. In that sense, mystery fosters a deeper level of respect and curiosity, not only about ourselves, but about others as well. It reminds us that no one should ever be fully known, because there is always more beneath the surface waiting to be discovered. Lastly, embracing the beauty of mystery helps us reconnect with our own sense of wonder. We live in a world where we can access anything at the click of a button, where knowledge is abundant and everything seems to be at our fingertips. But sometimes the most fulfilling experiences come from those moments when we don't know what's next, when we don't have all the answers. There's a certain magic in the unknown, a thrill in discovery that we lose when everything is laid out in front of us. Mystery reignites that sense of awe and curiosity, reminding us that life and people are full of surprises. Trust is the bedrock of every meaningful relationship, whether personal or professional. It's what allows us to feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to share our deepest fears, our dreams, and our flaws. Without trust, there is no connection, no true intimacy, and no foundation upon which we can build our most important relationships. Trust is not something that happens overnight. It is something that is built over time through consistent actions and a shared understanding. But it's also fragile, easily broken, and sometimes even harder to rebuild. Trust is the quiet glue that holds us together when the world feels chaotic. In a world that is often unpredictable, trust provides us with a sense of stability. We place trust in others when we believe they will act in ways that are reliable and considerate of our feelings, needs, and well-being. When that trust is violated, whether it's through dishonesty, betrayal, or broken promises, the bond is shattered, often leaving lasting scars that are not easily healed. At its core, trust is about vulnerability. When we trust someone, we are allowing them access to our most intimate selves. We are taking a risk, stepping into the unknown with the hope that they will honor our vulnerability and protect it with care. Trust means allowing ourselves to be seen, not just in our strengths, but also in our weaknesses. When we can trust others, we let down our guards, and in return, we hope that they will support us in the same way. But trust isn't just about the other person, it's about us too. Trusting others is a reflection of how much we trust ourselves. If we have low self-trust, we may struggle to believe in others. Our internal sense of safety and confidence shapes how we extend trust to the world. When we have a strong sense of self-trust, we can confidently give others the benefit of the doubt, knowing that we can handle whatever comes our way. On the flip side, when our self-trust is compromised, we become more hesitant, more guarded, and less willing to take risks in our relationships. Trust also forms the foundation for healthy communication. Without it, conversations are laced with doubt, suspicion, and defensiveness. Trust creates an environment where we can speak our truth without fear of judgment or rejection. It allows us to express ourselves openly, knowing that the other person will listen, consider our perspective, and respond thoughtfully. Trust creates the space for honest dialogue, even when the conversations are difficult or uncomfortable. It enables us to share our thoughts and feelings without fear that they will be used against us or manipulated in some way. In relationships, trust isn't a one-time event or a singular promise, it's a continual process. Every small action, every word spoken or unspoken, contributes to the trust we build with others. And we build trust by being consistent, by showing up when we say we will, and by being honest, even when the truth is difficult to share. Trust is earned through time and behavior, not merely through intentions or words. A single lie, a broken promise, or an unspoken betrayal can undo months, even years of trust building. Once trust is broken, it takes immense effort to rebuild, and sometimes it's never quite the same. There are moments when trust is tested, moments of conflict or misunderstanding where our trust is questioned. These moments are pivotal because they give us the opportunity to either strengthen or weaken the bond we share with someone. How we handle those moments determines the future of the relationship. Do we communicate openly about what happened? Do we listen to the other person's side of the story with empathy? Do we give them the space to explain and make amends? Or do we withdraw, shut down, or react impulsively? In these moments, our actions will either reinforce trust or chip away at it. Another critical aspect of trust is its relationship with boundaries. Boundaries are the unspoken agreements that tell others how we wish to be treated. When trust exists, we can establish and maintain boundaries that protect our emotional, physical, and mental well-being. Boundaries help define what is acceptable and what is not. When trust is present, we feel confident in setting and upholding those boundaries because we believe the other person will respect them. Conversely, when trust is lacking, we may feel afraid to express our needs or concerns, and we might tolerate things that violate our boundaries in the hopes of keeping the peace or avoiding conflict. Trust is also about being transparent and authentic. We earn trust by showing up as our true selves, not as a version of ourselves we think others want to see. When we hide parts of ourselves or wear masks, we create an environment where trust cannot thrive. Authenticity builds trust because it shows the other person that we are real, that we are not playing games or hiding something. We demonstrate integrity by aligning our words and actions, by being consistent in how we show up in the world. This openness allows others to trust us, not because they have to, but because they see we are genuine and reliable. But trust isn't just about being open with others, it's also about being trustworthy ourselves. We cannot expect others to trust us if we are not demonstrating trustworthiness. Trust is built on reliability, honesty, and integrity. It's about keeping our promises even when it's difficult. It's about being responsible for our actions and holding ourselves accountable. It's about being reliable, showing up when we say we will, and being someone others can count on when they need us most. There's also an element of trust that relates to forgiveness. When trust is broken, it can feel like a deep wound that may never fully heal. Yet trust also requires a willingness to forgive and rebuild. This doesn't mean we should tolerate harmful behavior or ignore violations of our boundaries, but it does mean that in some situations, we allow ourselves the opportunity to heal and move forward. Forgiveness, when possible, is an act of trust, not just in the other person, but in ourselves. It's a decision to believe that people can change, that relationships can evolve, and that trust can be rebuilt if both parties are willing to do the work. At its core, trust is about creating a safe space for people to be human. It allows us to show up as our imperfect selves, knowing that we will be met with understanding, compassion, and respect. Without trust, we are left to navigate our relationships in a state of constant fear and uncertainty, unsure of where we stand or what to expect. Trust gives us the courage to be open, to take risks, and to believe in the possibility of deep, meaningful connections. It is the foundation on which we build our closest relationships, and it is the force that keeps those relationships strong when challenges arise. Vulnerability is often celebrated as a powerful force, one that creates deep connections, fosters trust, and encourages authenticity. It is the raw honesty of revealing our fears, our pains, and our desires that makes vulnerability so universally revered. But while vulnerability is powerful, it's also delicate, and it must be practiced with intention. The truth is, vulnerability is not something to be given away indiscriminately. It's an art that requires discretion, thoughtfulness, and a deep understanding of ourselves. This is the essence of selective vulnerability, knowing when, where, and with whom to share our most authentic selves. Selective vulnerability is about choosing when to let our guard down and when to hold something back. It's not about hiding who we are or pretending to be someone we're not. It's about discerning who has earned the right to witness our innermost thoughts and emotions. Just as a trusted friend knows how to handle our hearts with care, we must learn to trust ourselves in deciding when and how to reveal our true selves. The concept of selective vulnerability is rooted in the understanding that not everyone deserves to be privy to our deepest truths. Not every person in our lives has the capacity to hold our vulnerability with respect. Vulnerability, when shared with the wrong person, can lead to exploitation, misunderstanding, or harm. It's essential to recognize that some people might not have the emotional intelligence or the integrity to safeguard the rawness we offer. It's our responsibility, therefore, to be mindful about who we choose to share our vulnerabilities with and to set boundaries that protect our emotional well-being. One of the reasons why selective vulnerability is so important is that it helps us maintain our sense of self-respect. when we share too much too soon, when we expose ourselves indiscriminately, we risk losing our sense of autonomy. Our vulnerability is a precious part of who we are. It's a reflection of our deepest fears, our greatest desires, and our most authentic needs. If we offer it to everyone who crosses our path, we risk becoming disconnected from ourselves because we're no longer protecting the parts of us that need nurturing and care. Instead, we may find ourselves seeking validation or approval from others and depending too heavily on external sources for our sense of worth. Selective vulnerability allows us to keep a healthy balance sharing parts of ourselves when it feels right, while maintaining enough distance to stay grounded in our own sense of self. Selective vulnerability also encourages intentionality in our relationships. When we are discerning about what we share and when we share it, we encourage deeper, more meaningful connections. Vulnerability in its truest form invites others to be vulnerable in return. It creates an exchange of trust, honesty, and intimacy. But this exchange needs to happen in a space where both parties are ready to hold each other's vulnerability with care. If we reveal too much too soon, we can overwhelm others or create an imbalance in the relationship. By choosing the right time and place to share, we allow the relationship to evolve organically, deepening in connection as we reveal ourselves gradually. Another key element of selective vulnerability is its role in protecting our emotional health. Vulnerability by its nature is risky. When we allow someone access to our true selves, we are exposing ourselves to the possibility of judgment, rejection, or misunderstanding. These risks are part of what makes vulnerability so powerful, but they also make it dangerous if not approached carefully. By practicing selective vulnerability, we reduce the likelihood of being hurt because we are giving ourselves the chance to assess the situation and gauge the other person's ability to handle what we share. When we offer ourselves selectively, we are doing so in a way that ensures we are surrounded by those who will value and care for our vulnerability rather than misuse it. In this process, we are also learning to trust ourselves more deeply. We learn to honor our intuition and inner wisdom, which guide us in choosing when and where to be vulnerable. We begin to recognize that our vulnerability is not something to be managed by others. It is something that we control. Trusting ourselves in this way helps us develop a stronger sense of self and empowers us to take ownership of our emotional landscape. It's about knowing that we have the capacity to navigate our own hearts and minds and that we can trust ourselves to share only what feels safe and right in any given moment. Selective vulnerability also challenges the common misconception that being open and vulnerable means being open with everyone. It's not about giving everything to everyone in an attempt to be seen or understood. True vulnerability isn't about oversharing or spilling all of our emotions without thought or reason. It's about giving ourselves permission to be real, to share our truth, but doing so with awareness of who we are sharing it with. We need to be conscious of the context in which we reveal ourselves, the other person's emotional capacity, and the trust that has been built. Vulnerability, in this sense, is an act of emotional intelligence, of knowing that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is choose silence over speaking, distance over closeness, and restraint over excess. One of the most profound aspects of selective vulnerability is that it allows us to create spaces where we can be deeply seen without fear. We are able to give of ourselves to those who have demonstrated a deep sense of care, respect, and understanding. When we open up selectively, we begin to attract relationships that are based on mutual trust, support, and empathy. These relationships, in turn, become a safe haven where vulnerability is honored and nurtured, and where both parties feel free to show up as their most authentic selves. In practicing selective vulnerability, we are not closing ourselves off or becoming guarded. We are simply learning to be more discerning about where we invest our emotional energy. We are learning that vulnerability is not a weakness to be exploited, but a strength to be shared wisely. We give of ourselves when it serves our growth, when it strengthens our bonds with others, and when it feels like the right moment to show up fully. By being selective, we empower ourselves to engage with the world in a way that honors both our truth and our emotional safety. Finally, selective vulnerability teaches us patience and grace both with ourselves and others. It allows us to take our time to reveal ourselves slowly and steadily rather than rushing into openness out of fear or the desire for connection. It reminds us that vulnerability isn't about a single moment of truth, but a process that unfolds over time. Just as trust is built gradually, so too is vulnerability. By embracing this process, we are learning to honor both our own pace and the pace of those around us, allowing ourselves the space to share when it feels right and to hold back when we need to. In conclusion, the concepts of selective vulnerability, trust, boundaries, and the beauty of mystery all intertwine to create a rich and complex framework for meaningful, authentic relationships. They remind us that we are not obligated to share everything about ourselves with the world, and that our vulnerability, when given thoughtfully and intentionally, becomes a powerful tool for connection. Trust allows us to build safe spaces where we can be ourselves without fear of judgment, while boundaries protect the most sacred parts of our identity. Mystery adds depth, creating room for discovery and curiosity. Ultimately, by practicing selective vulnerability and understanding the nuances of these elements, we cultivate relationships that are not only deeper, but also healthier, where we can show up as our truest selves without the pressure to reveal everything at once. When we approach our interactions with care and intention, we honor both our needs and the needs of others, forging bonds that are built on mutual respect, understanding, and love.